Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you will find stuff probably unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group with a large membership, and best of all, we're friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
My name is Leonard Ernest Reed. I was known by everyone who knew me as Nipper Reed. I was born in Nottingham on the 31st of March in 1925. During my working life, I was a policeman and rose to the rank of Chief Superintendent of the Metropolitan Police's murder squad. I led the investigation into the arrest and eventual conviction of the Kray twins and their firm in 1968 and 1969. Away from my police work, my passion was boxing, and I became a boxing administrator, a position I held for many years. Here is my story. One of the first times I was put in disguise was when a pub was being used as a betting shop, in a sense that suggested the landlord was only too well aware of what was happening. As the pub was near Euston Station, I got myself a British Railways waistcoat. They were black with stripes, and a railway cap. With no trouble at all, I could watch what was going on, logging the people coming in to lay their bets, and watching the landlord turn a blind eye. On the final day of observation, I was sitting reading a paper, trying to be inconspicuous, and suddenly there was a tap on my shoulder, and there was the railway foreman. "What are you doing in here?" he asked. I said, "I was just going, Governor. I was just going. Where are you from?" "Number 4 platform, sir," I said, and before he could answer, I'd shot out the pub. That was the narrowest squeak I had, because if I had been exposed as not being a railway man, I could have expected a hiding. Subsequently, the pub was raided by Inspector Matthews and the sergeant, and the landlord was prosecuted. They tried to avoid my having to give evidence to preserve my anonymity, but the case was fought by the landlord. A conviction would mean the loss of his license, and so I had to be called and had my first experience of having my evidence challenged by Henry Elam, who went on to be chairman of Inner London Sessions. The landlord was horrified to hear me give the details of my period of observation. He had not even recognized me as a habitué of his pub. He was even more horrified when he was convicted. There was a bookies runner they had been after for years. He collected slips and money from all the local public houses for a bookmaker who had an office in Albany Street. They'd tried to use women police, but in those days, women police were great strapping wenches, bigger than me, and they were spotted right away. So they tried me, because in ex-army surplus clothes, no one would ever believe I was a policeman. I remember nicking him as he came out of a pub in Hampstead Road. I let him turn right because I knew he was on the way to Albany Street. I'd been told that all I had to do was go up to this guy, make sure he had the bets on him, and that he didn't throw them away. I said, "Right, you're nicked." I must have shown him my warrant card, because he wouldn't have believed me otherwise. I told him to put his hands in his trouser pockets and keep them there. "Don't worry, son," he said, "I've got them all on me. Can I have a fag?" "No," I said. I was terrified there'd be betting slips all over the place. Then we did the betting office itself, which was opposite the barracks in Albany Street. The betting offices then weren't the grand places with colour televisions like they are today, just a room with a ticker tape machine giving the results, and a few telephones. Observation was set up with Hatchard, Gosh, Matthews and me. We had to get in the premises, It was suggested that when the runner came up, I would leave the observation post and go behind him, and as he went in, I would open the door to let the others in. The only problem about this was that the office was in a mews, and so I had to wait until the runner was actually inside the door before I could go into the mews itself. Matthews gave me the signal, "Righto, titch, off you go, and for Christ's sake, don't miss it." I watched as the man opened the door, and then I sped down the mews. I was on him before he could get the door closed, and shortly afterwards, Matthews and Hatchett arrived at a leisurely pace. "Gosh, Titch, you cut that fine," said Matthews, as we climbed the stairs to confront the surprise bookmaker and his staff. It was a perfect collar, but whilst we were in there, the phone went, and I recognized the voice of a local detective sergeant ringing up to place a bet. "Sorry, Sid," I said. "The office is closed today." The brothels in the 1940s were not just a couple of girls working together from the same premises, but actually houses with a madam. The girls would pick up the clients down Euston Station and Hampstead Road Way and bring them back to the big old houses in Eversalt Street. The neighbours would complain, and then observation was kept on a number of girls who frequented the premises regularly and who would be identified at the time as tall, black-haired and referred to as A, short and blonde, referred to as B, and so on. I remember when we went into one with Gosh Matthews, who had obtained the warrant, we saw the madam. Raids were not something they resented unduly, and so there was never any bad feeling when we went in at 2 in the morning. Once inside the premises, it was my job to go from room to room, identifying the girls I had designated as A, B, and so on to Mr. Matthews. We went into a ground floor room, and much to the consternation of the client, I said, "Sir, this is the woman identified in my report as C." We then left and explored the other rooms. I then had to go back and take full particulars. I went back to the ground floor room and found the client had recovered his composure. Looking over his heaving back, Miss C said, "Well, he's got to get his 2 quid's worth, hasn't he?" For me then, this was a kind of a fun thing, after just a few weeks on the beat, which I had found boring. In fact, Hatchett and I had such a run of successes that by the end of the year, I collected my first commissioner's commendation, which was quite an achievement for a young copper still serving a probationary period. I was still playing football for the division and, of course, boxing. I won my first police boxing championship at Manor Place Baths, down near the Elephant and Castle. I stood holding what was an enormous silver trophy and basking in glory when the superintendent, who would be the equivalent now of commander, took it from me, telling me to get back on brothel observation and saying, "I'll look after this for you. Back to work." The cup joined the others in the station's trophy room, and I did not see it again until I had to return it for the next year's tournament. At that time, the way to join the CID was to put your name down in a book. Then, when there was a vacancy as an aide, applicants would be considered. When I entered my details, I noticed I was the first applicant since before the war. A few months later, I was called to see the divisional detective inspector, now the equivalent of a chief superintendent, who asked whether I still wanted to join the CID. For a moment, I was uncertain. I was doing well with Ivor Hatchett, and Gosh Matthews had more or less promised that I would make rapid progress in the uniform division. He was pleased with the work Hatchett and I were doing, and when we had a raid, he was there to lead it, and so went on to the score sheet, so to speak. The better I did, the better he did. But I knew that soon my small successes as an undercover man would come to an end. I would begin to get known, and then I would have to be taken off the streets. The CID was where I really wanted to be. "Yes, please," I said. I was sent to St. John's Wood Police Station, a few hundred yards from the Lord's cricket ground, to serve what turned out to be a 4-year apprenticeship as an aide to CID. This was the turning point of my career, because I was put under the wing of one of the best detectives I have ever met, although he never rose beyond the rank of aide to CID. His name was Martin Walsh. It is perhaps trite to say that I owe him the credit for any success I have had, but it is true. He was an older man, then in his late 40s, who was used as a tutor aide. He taught me what investigating was all about. He was, without doubt, the most dedicated man I have ever met. Everyone knew his qualities. He was tenacious and persistent. The words could almost have been coined to describe him. He would sit and have me sit with him for hours on end observing a suspect. He would watch someone leave a building and say, "He'll be back." When after a few hours I would say, as an impatient 22-year-old, that we had blown it, he would reply, "Give it a bit longer," and I would grudgingly accept the long and dreary hours. Sure enough, he would return. Nor was there any question of spelling each other by taking turns to keep watch. 4 eyes were better than 2. The difference between him and flying squad detectives, who sit 4 in a car with the windows up and fogged up with cigarette smoke, was amazing. They just don't know what an observation is. He did. He and I would sit and wait, and more often than not, something came from our patients. He was a Birmingham man, and once, when the city was in a cup tie, being broadcast on the wireless, I suggested he might want to listen to it whilst on duty. He absolutely slated me for the suggestion. He had a sixth sense of what was going wrong. Just after the war, stealing lead from churches, blue flying it was called, was the rage, and there was good money to be made. Martin would sit and watch people go in and out of disused or bombed churches, just waiting for the moment to make an arrest. There was no point in doing it before they came out, because there was always the excuse, "I'm only here for a piss." So he would wait until the thieves had loaded up their prams or handcarts before he made his move. One man he knew, George O'Brien, was a regular, and we watched him one day go into an old convent on the borders of St. John's Wood and Kilburn. This time, unusually, he was without his handcart. He came out, seemingly empty-handed, but Martin had the feeling we should pull him. As we followed him, he looked over his shoulder, saw us, and began to run. I chased after him and was surprised how quickly I was catching up with him when he fell over. He tried to get up, but he couldn't, and I thought he might have hurt himself. Martin didn't. He looked down and said, "You see, George, you will try and take too much. This should be a lesson to you not to be so greedy." George had wrapped sheets of lead around his body, and so when he had overbalanced, could not pick himself up. Martin was not much taller than I was, and together we would bicycle round the beat. We had a basic signalling system when Martin, who usually led, smelled something wrong and would peel off into a side street, leaving me to go on to the next turning. It was a simple but incredibly successful ploy, and we would be able to approach and make the arrest before the suspects knew we were there. I wish I could say I had been with him in early 1949 when, after another long and patient observation, he arrested a loiterer. We had what for us was an early night, packing it in about 5 p.m. Martin lived in Scott Ellis Gardens at the side of Lord's cricket ground, and he walked to the corner to get himself an evening paper. There he watched a man behaving suspiciously and eventually arrested him. I was with him when the next morning the man was taken to Marylebone Court. Before the case was called, there was a great commotion in the jailer's office and a detective inspector appearing saying he was taking over the case. We had no idea why, and we were not told, but we stayed at court. The reason for the interest in and hijacking of the case was that the man was Harry Lewis, and he was charged with the murder of a lightning cartoonist, Harry Michelson. Michelson was living alone in a basement flat in Marylebone when on Boxing Day in 1948, Lewis, then aged 21, got in through an open window. At the time, Michelson was asleep in the bedroom and woke to find Lewis on his way out, having picked up what cash there was in Michelson's pockets. Michelson called out. Lewis turned, picked up a chair, and battered him with it. Michelson was taken to hospital, where he died following a brain operation. It was after Martin had had Lewis's fingerprints sent to the fingerprint department at Scotland Yard to discover if he had a criminal record that these were matched with those on the chair. It was argued on Lewis's behalf that the real cause of death was the brain operation and that the verdict should be one of manslaughter, but the then Lord Chief Justice Lord Goddard would have none of it, telling the jury that if they found that this was the case of a burglar killing a householder to avoid arrest, it must be one of murder. The jury, in fact, added a recommendation of mercy, possibly because of Lewis's age. A reprieve was refused, and he was hanged on the 21st of April 1949. Cases were heard more quickly in those days. I never met Michelson, but he was well known at police functions where he would draw cartoons of the guests. It was always said he was such a kindly man that if Lewis had only asked for the money, in all probability he would have given it to him. As for the chair, that stayed in the detective inspector's office at Paddington for years. The last time I saw it, there was still the exhibit number stuck to it with an arrow showing where the fingerprint officer had found the giveaway print. Then one day, the deputy detective inspector, Jock Jameson, took it away to use in a lecture, and it never came back. After his arrest of Lewis, Martin was offered the opportunity to become a detective constable in the CID, but he turned it down flat. "This is what I do best," he said. During the time we were together, we were posted to various murder inquiries. The first of them was of an old lady who had been found strangled in the grounds of Winfield House, then the home of the Woolworth heiress Barbara Hutton, and now the official residence of the American ambassador. Not much was known about the poor woman. Indeed, for a long time, she was not identified, and Martin and I were sent round the area to try to make some sort of identification. One of the calls we made was to the Princess Alice, a pub in Acacia Road, and there the landlord Dave Kleinfield told us the description sounded like that of one of his public bar regulars whom he had not seen for some time. Martin sent me down to the police station to collect her clothes, and when we put them on the floor, the landlord was immediately able to identify them as belonging to a woman he knew as Kate Higgins, who lived in a Mews, Townsend Cottages. They were not so fashionable then, nearby, and from Kleinfield's directions we found the house. It turned out that Kate was known as Irish Kit and, aged over 70, was still working as a prostitute. We reported back to the detective inspector John Bliss, who later became the national coordinator of the regional crime squads. He organized the opening up of her house, and there on the kitchen table was a pair of kippers. Now, as the house hadn't been open for at least 2 weeks, the smell was unimaginable. It was decided that a crucial help in the investigation would be to discover where she had bought the fish, and I was detailed to go with a Detective Sergeant Joe Prattley from another station who had been drafted into the inquiry, a little tiny fellow who looked like the actor Gordon Harker. He spoke a bit like him too. He always wore a Trilby hat at a jaunty angle. "Right, son," he said. "How many bleeding fishmongers are there in St. John's Wood? When you were talking about St. John's Wood, then you were talking about the High Street and nothing else." I told him there were 3. We set off at 10:30 in the morning and came to the first pub and knocked on the side door. Down came the landlady, who saw him and said, "Joe, come on in. What are you drinking?" Bass was the answer. Turning to me, he said, "Pop over the road to the fishmonger's son." They knew nothing about the kippers, and I came back and sat sipping a Guinness whilst Joe was drinking Bass until it was coming out of his ears. Then, all of a sudden, he said, "Thanks very much." Off we go. We walked round the corner, came to the next pub, and it was exactly the same. "Come on in, Joe." Off I went to the second fishmonger's, and again they said no, so I went back and reported. "Right, that's it," Joe said. "She must have bought them at the other one." So we stayed there for nearly an hour, and then he said, "Lunchtime," and off we went to a third pub where they gave us fish and chips. We got back to the station about 2:30 p.m., and, to general acclaim, Joe announced that the kippers had come from the third shop. If this is conducting a murder inquiry, no wonder there are no arrests, I thought. No one was ever charged with Kit's murder. There was a strong suspicion that it was someone from the RAF who were stationed in Viceroy Court nearby, but it was no more than suspicion. Thank you for listening. That's all for this edition. I'll see you in the next one soon.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I